All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Point of the Plate, our umpire webinar that we put on. Filling in tonight as your host, myself, Brandon Strachey, Provincial Supervisor of Umpires, in replace of our media relations person, Jeff Chipley, who's unable to be with us. Special guest here tonight is Graham Grieder, who's going to be talking about provincial championship assignments and how that works. Before I turn it over to Graham, just want to thank everybody for joining. Think of some questions. Feel free to fire questions into the chat as they come up, and as long as we stay with kind of the group that we have tonight, we'll probably be able to ask some questions later on as well. Want to just quickly tee up provincial championships for you, Graham, before I turn it over to you. One of the very important and big pieces of the Provincial Umpire Committee's job is to assign over 60 championships that we've had in this past year. Something that Baseball Alberta is super proud of and very excited is to offer provincial championships to all players. I believe this dates back to about 2005. And as we've seen growing numbers in Baseball Alberta, we also understand that means growing numbers of provincial championships. And so one of our very large tasks, not the easiest task to fulfill, but certainly one that, Graham, you're going to speak on tonight and that you've done a great job with the last few years, is providing umpires and assigning umpires to these provincial championships. And I think this is a really important topic because of the magnitude of this job that we have a point of the plate centered around this specific task that the umpire committee performs. So with that being said, Graham, I think I'll turn it over to you and you can talk about how the process works for provincial championship assignments.
Right on. Thanks, Brandon. As Brandon mentioned, there is a ton of these. So somewhere between the range of 50 and 60, depending on the different age groups and the different levels. And they run on 3 weekends. So the July 19th weekend and then the 2 following that, wrapping up on the August long weekend. Different tournaments, different weekends. But tonight, what I really want to focus on is what that process looks like on your end of things and what we need all of our umpires to do. So I sent out an email 2 days ago, I believe now, with a kind of brief description of what's going on. And in the middle of that is a link to a form. And so I'm going to share my screen now here so everyone's aware of what we're looking at. So if you click that link, you should open up to this, which is the Baseball Alberta Provincials 2024. Bunch of questions here. So your first name, last name, email, the city you live in, whatever clinic you attended this year. So 1, 2, 3, or 4 plus. Important to us is this one. This is new on the form this year. Provincials worked in 2023. Reason that we want all this here is so that I can, without having to go back and look at my massive spreadsheet from last year, is see what tournaments you worked and hopefully give you an upgrade on the year previous. And then try and fit you in somewhere that fits your skill level well. Below that, then we have the actual weekend. So as I mentioned, the first one is July 19 to 21. Available, unavailable. Simple as that. If you are available, can you travel? Can you not travel? So I know, like for myself, the second weekend, I cannot travel. I've got stuff going on that I need to be home for in the evenings, but that doesn't mean I can't work games and help out during the day. These tournaments run typically Friday, at least half a day, all day Saturday, and at least half a day Sunday. So even if you're only available for part of the day on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Friday, just make sure that you select cannot travel. And that way we'll try and find you a tournament close to home to make sure that we get all these games covered. So same thing for July 26, 28, and same thing for the August long weekend, which is the 2nd to the 4th. Again, just a reminder that is August long. So if you are going to be away for part of it, just hit that cannot travel button and let us know which days you can be home for, and hopefully we can figure out something that works. Last on this form is, would you like to be a crew chief? Crew chief is a role typically to more veteran umpires, but not always the case. What it means more or less is that you are the lead for that tournament. So sometimes there's a pre-tournament meeting. You're in charge of putting together the schedule, being in contact with the host, and making sure that everything's taken care of that way. So if that's something that you've done before and enjoyed, you can hit yes. If you hated it, you can hit no. If you don't care, that's fine too. Don't care isn't sassy. I know it kind of sounds sassy, but it more or less means you're good either way. If you've never been a crew chief, but it's something you're interested in, you can hit the yes button. And if you were looking for more details, feel free to reach out to myself, and I'm happy to provide what that looks like. It can be a little bit fun. Building the schedule is a good thing to get used to, especially if you plan to umpire for years down the road, as that applies to multiple things of what we do and various tournaments throughout the way. The first one's always a little challenging, and then once you've done it once, it's like riding a bike. So from that, what happens is everything goes into a big Excel sheet for me, and I kind of see it. And then as we get these host sites from the office, which we should have sometime in June, I can start plugging away an assignment. And so what happens after that's done, how do I move this to see this one? There we go. So after that's done, what'll happen is you'll get an assignment into Arbiter. So this is what it'll look like on your screen. You'll see something come through to some extent like this, so that this one I can see, okay, I've got a provincial championship. This is the one's for 18U AAA on the Friday. All that you'll see come through on Arbiter will be the Friday. So it's really important that you're aware that that means it's for the whole weekend. So clicking in here, I can see that I am a base umpire, which means I am not going to be crew chief. If that's a tournament that I'm around to work, I can hit accept. And as soon as I do that, should go through, it goes away from my not accepted. The next thing we need to go is to go into our schedule. So to do that, you hit the blocks button. You want to hit block all day. Slide over to July. Slowly but surely. And we're going to block out, if I've accepted the tournament for the 19th, we're going to block out the 20th and the 21st. Reason for this is there are league games going on. There's other things happening. We want to make sure that once you've accepted that that tournament game, that you're blocked off for that entire weekend, meaning that you can work baseball the whole weekend, right? Last thing you want to happen is you leave that open and then you get picked on to assign. Could be a 13U AAA that weekend. Could be anything, right? There's still league games going on that weekend, so we want to make sure that that's done. Once that's done, you're all good to go, and you can move back on to your day-to-day. Okay, and then keep an eye out for it, because just because one came out doesn't mean that's going to be the end of it. These will kind of roll on right through, probably up to ideally 2-3 weeks before, but realistically it could be up to the week before. People have to cancel, things happen. So just keep an eye on your arbiter, especially with respect to the provincial championships. One other piece I want to mention is the actual mentorship side of it. So last year we experimented with some off-field crew chiefs. I think this was a huge success in our program and something that I would really like to see carry forward. So if you were part of this, you know what it looks like. If you weren't, as you basically take the role of an off-field crew chief or on-field, depending on your comfortability, you were then a mentor for that weekend as well. So as you take off the crew chief responsibilities and make sure that the guys that are there are just there to umpire, you're then overseeing, you're helping, you're providing feedback, making the weekend a fun weekend. Speaking on kind of what that looked like for you, I know you did that last year and had a lot of fun with it, if you don't mind me picking on you.
Did you just call on me?
Yeah, if you want to speak on that. I know you had a lot of fun with the mentorship last year.
Sorry, my sound and everything came to a stop for a moment, and now I'm caught up. Yeah, so I know that from my own long experience that working in provincial championships through the course of moving up through the levels, that when you first start out working in provincial championships, well, you don't have a lot of experience with three-man rotations, three-man coverage systems, and things like that. And certainly the administrative part of it, of as Graham had just described, of coordinating with the host, of building the schedules and things like that, that's not something that you're perhaps trained in. And so Graham had what I think was a brilliant idea of getting veteran umpires such as myself to be a mentor to less experienced provincial championship crews. And so he asked me to do this, and I spent the whole weekend with 3 young guys in St. Albert, and did the administrative thing, and also worked with them as an off-field mentor through the course of their championship, and helped them to start to develop a better understanding and execution of 3-man mechanics. And certainly I was there to be on a protest committee should that ever arise, but it did not. And you know, just to act as a go-to guy for 3 younger umpires that were in a environment in which they were, you know, didn't have a lot of experience. And so 2 of the things that I thought were just really brilliant about this is that mostly that guys that were being shoved or going into a provincial championship without a lot of background on that, well, they had some support behind them, and from our standpoint, administratively, we don't have to feel so much that we're sending people into the lion's den kind of thing without having their backs. So I think that was really important. And then having the feedback and the personal growth opportunity for umpires that don't have a lot of experience in 3-man mechanics and are moving into this area and want to get better. Well, they were getting immediate feedback, and I had, you know, the real pleasure of seeing guys implementing changes into their games right almost right away. And so having that opportunity to apply something immediately, that's terrific learning and experiential development where you can get better in a hurry. So I think that this was just a brilliant idea for those reasons that I've just described. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to be able to do it again this season. And I've spoken it up with a lot of other veteran umpires, and I hope that they'll be as enthusiastic about the project as I am. And certainly for younger guys that are being put onto these crews, the notion of asking for a mentor may not occur to you, but it could be a pretty valuable thing to help you to advance in both your umpire career and in your personal development. So I think the idea was brilliant. Looking forward to seeing this grow and become really commonplace.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that. And it's, yeah, I think you nailed it on the head, and it's something I think we'd love to continue to work on. And yeah, so if it's something that you're watching this or watching it later, listening to it later, and it's something that you're interested in doing, please reach out to myself, and we'll make sure that we find you a home for that, because it's unless someone volunteers to do it, yeah, it's kind of a volunteer basis, and we go from there. So yeah, so just kind of to recap, keep an eye on your email. If you haven't seen that email come through, it came through via Arbiter. If that hasn't come through, please reach out to myself or Brandon, and we'll make sure that we get that email into your hands. And that email is the form. Please fill out that form at the latest by June 1st. If you do have updates, just fill out the form again, and the oldest one will automatically get deleted. So don't worry about emailing myself. If you suddenly have a schedule change, just refill out the form, and that's completely fine. Once you do get assigned to provincial, please go into Arbiter, accept or decline the provincial, and then block off the Saturday and the Sunday for that same weekend. And then, yeah, the rest is kind of stay tuned until your crew chief reaches out, or I'll reach out to you with all of the paperwork if you are the crew chief, and you go from there. So that's kind of it as far as provincials go. Please, if you are available, be available. Like I said, there's 60-some tournaments, anywhere from 3 to 12 guys at a tournament, depending on the tournament. So there's a lot of holes to fill, and we do the best we can to get these out as quickly as can. And that all starts with your availability and willingness to travel. And so that's all good information to have and help. So those of you that already filled out the form, I think there's 70-some already on there, which is awesome. I appreciate that. Hopefully we can get that number closer to 200 by June 1st, and that makes our job here on the committee a lot easier.
Awesome, Graham. Thank you. a couple questions that I had coming up that I think that for clarification purposes, and it kind of ties into the first audience question here. It came from Davin. His question was, can we get this form that you just presented, shown on the Baseball Alberta website? Is that something you think? I will talk to the office to see if that's something that we can post as a link to the form, that maybe it's just accessible. So that was Davin's question. Could this form be found on the Baseball Alberta website? Davin, I think the quick answer to that is that we'll look into seeing if we can get that posted. But Graham, I think the question that stemmed from this that I thought of is the importance of the use of arbiter, and using arbiter as part of this process to assigning provincials, and trying to encourage our umpires who maybe go through the months of May and June doing a lot of just grassroots level, local association level baseball, and don't really have a use for arbiter potentially because their association doesn't use it. And then all of a sudden they want to work provincials, and now they need to use arbiter. And so not only did your email go through arbiter to get this form out, not only are you going to assign games through arbiter, and it's a pretty important tool. Do you want to maybe just speak on arbiter just in general a little bit?
Yeah, arbiter, when I was first learning how to use it, hated it, and now it's I live on that thing almost, and it's very useful. It's very helpful in terms of assigners. I mean, like you saw with your schedule, you can set your blocks. Those blocks can be time specific. It's very easy to go in there as an umpire and be able to say, okay, if I work on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights, I can block off those nights, and then I'm ready to accept games the rest of the week. And as you work up in the baseball world, especially here in Alberta, we use arbiter for all levels. So if you're working AA over 13U AA, so that's 15U AA, 13U AAA, 15U AAA and above, you're going to be getting those games through arbiter. So the sooner you've kind of familiarize yourself with that platform, the better. There are lots of tutorials on YouTube for basic kind of stuff. I've used some from the assigning side, and I know they're there from the personnel side as well. And if you're having trouble with it, please don't hesitate to reach out, because it is important. It's a good tracking system for us in terms of making sure we know what level all of our umpires are at, and making sure that they're ranked accordingly based on their umpire level, so that they're eligible to get the games that they probably want to get. So if you're level 2 and you've never been on arbiter, please reach out to myself, Brandon, and we'll make sure that we get you on there so that you're ready to go. And if you have any trouble using it, again, don't hesitate to reach out, because it is a very useful tool, and all of the assigners in under the Baseball Alberta umbrella use arbiter.
Excellent. Thanks, Graham. I think that leads into my next question that I thought was relevant, was maybe to talk about what our level 2 umpire expectations. So as a provincial supervisor, I guess maybe I can speak a little bit on this. First of all, our level 2s or higher are all put into arbiter. Not to say that level 1s can't be put into arbiter, especially if they're needed. And we know that we have some veteran umpires that maintain a level 1 status, but they've been umpiring for a very long time and are very important assets to us in the umpire world. So they can be also, but they're on a need to or on an asked to basis, where automatically all of our level 2s or higher get put in arbiter. Maybe speak to what ours expectation is of maybe level 2 and level 3 umpires, what we expect of them from provincial championships, and what they can expect back. And I think that provincial championships is the carrot to advancing throughout the program.
Yeah, and it's a good point. When I first started umpiring 11, 12 years ago now, provincial championships were always this big carrot. It was, okay, so if I work really hard this year and work a lot of baseball games, I'm going to get a good assignment. And I think we kind of lost that for a few years, and we want to bring that back. So we want to reward the umpires that are out there working hard, working games, making our assigners' lives a lot easier on the day-to-day at the end of the year with a good tournament. So what does that mean? In terms of good tournaments, it's a loose word, and I want to be careful with that, because there's good baseball at all levels. But depending on the August long is where the tier 1 to 3s are in 13U, 15U, 18U, and some of the AAAs. And I think that's if that's a goal where you want to get to, is you want to be working that August long weekend. And so to do that, it's putting in the effort, being available, communicating with your assigner. It's impossible for me to know every single level 2 in the province. That's very obvious. But what happens is when I get a tournament that's in Calgary, I'll reach out to the Calgary assigner, which is Levi Wagner this year, for the level 2s, and I'll say, hey, Levi, who's been really good, who's been helpful for you, and then I give them the top tournaments in that area. Right? Obviously, for the August long, we're allowed to travel guys a little bit more. So same thing. If Levi says, hey, this umpire has been a stud for me all year. He's been helping out. He's been picking up games. He's been saving my life. That kid's going to get rewarded for that effort throughout the season, right? Yeah, it's like I said, it's impossible for to know everyone. So make friends with your assigner, or friends, if you will. I know not everyone loves their assigner, and that's life. Yeah, it's a tough job, and we're all here to do the best we can. And level 2s are very, very important to us. We've isolated that as a need. Last year we had a record number of officials, but a large number were level 1. So growing those into level 2s is always the goal. And yeah, so I mean, anywhere from basically 11U AA up to 18U AA level 2s can be working. All depends on how much you work, how much you're willing to grow, and recommendations from your local assigner.
And then maybe you want to speak on kind of if they were to enter into the level 3 program, it's all relative, but maybe what those games potentially look like. When we see our level 3 list, what's our expectations of them? Where do we typically end up placing those for championship assignments?
So level 3s, the first thing that we look to is definitely that August long weekend. So you're seeing the top tiers, even some of the AAAs. Some of them have multiple tiers. You're working your way into that side of the program as you get through there. Again, depending on availability, depending on age, depending on your skill level, your comfortability. There's a number of things that fall into that. But at level 3, we probably have a little bit better idea of who you are and what fits well for you. But yeah, it's definitely, as you move through the levels, the baseball that you work will undoubtedly get better.
Had a question in the chat from Lance. He's just asking, how do you become a level 3? I'll field this one, Graham, for you. I think it's appropriate. Level 3 is contingent upon completing your level 2, which is the 3-year program that we have. So just quickly to summarize the NUCP program at the grassroots, level 1 is a 1-year program, or 2, depending on how many games you work your first year. Once you've completed 10 games on base or plate, the following year you could move into level 2. Once you're in the level 2 program, you are now expected to complete 3 years at this level into 3 different modules. This year was the game management module at level 2. I believe that makes next year offense and the following year defense. Once you've completed all 3 of those years, then you enter into the level 3. The level 3 is a 3-year program as well and has 3 different components. The first one being an in-person clinic. We just completed our in-person level 3 clinic this past weekend. It was held for 2024 in the central area of Penhold, Alberta. You can also enter in as doing modules in a module year, which is this year as well. And then starting next year will be the release of the 2025 level 3 exam. And so those are kind of the 3 entry points into the level 3 program. And those were available. The 2 that were available this year being the e-modules and the in-person clinic were available on the Baseball Alberta website to register for. Level 3 modules are still an option. So that's a great graphic. Thanks, Graham. Appreciate that. There's your graphic that's presented at the level at all of our clinics. So there you see the offense, defense, game management, and the training clinic, which is in person, the e-learning, which is the modules, and the online exam. So that's just a quick, brief rundown. Again, the e-learning modules are still available to register on Baseball Alberta. If you go to the website there, you can click on it and register for those modules. Pay online, and you get granted access to that with some further information following your registration. Got a few more questions in the chat here that came in. Steve asks, how do you want us to handle if we are based out of a different city for a portion of the summer? Graham, that's a great question. And you know what? I've had that question come up a few different times. Feel free to chime in here. So how do you want us to handle if we are based out of a different city for a portion of the summer?
Yeah, so that's one where an email might be worth it. I mean, it's kind of the odd case. It's the same as, I'll answer this in the same question after, is dealing with players. A lot of our umpires are players. So yeah, those ones kind of have to do with an email. I mean, on the form, you can put Edmonton/Calgary. Like, I know there's a couple people who work in both cities, and some are weekdays, some are weeknights, back and forth. But if it's something like on the July 19 to 21 weekend, I'm going to be in Lethbridge, and on the August long weekend, I'm going to be in Edmonton, that's more or less worth an email. But on the form, you can just kind of put Edmonton/Lethbridge/whatever, and then send me an email to follow up, and I'll just flag that for closer to, because I do know that's a realistic thing. And players, while I'm on it, I know that a lot of players don't know what tier they're in provincially, especially some of those bubble tiers where it's, okay, we could be playing this weekend, we could be playing that weekend. Don't fill out the form until you know. And I think you should know by early June, and then we'll slot you accordingly. Because obviously we don't want to sign you up for provincial and then have to move stuff around because your team made a different tier. So just hold off on entering the form until you know what tier you're playing in. If you know for sure you're going to be a tier 1 to 3 team or a tier 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 team, then it's pretty easy to figure out which weekends are available and which ones you aren't. But if you're one of those bubble teams, don't hesitate to wait. Does that answer that?
Yep, perfect. Steve's
Awesome.
happy with that response. So great, thanks. Question from Joshua. Where on Arbiter is the provincial championship availability form? So is it posted on Arbiter, or did you just use Arbiter for the emails and you sent it out via email? Do you want to just clarify that?
Yeah, so here, let me do it this way because this will be easier to. As long as you have, and I'll show this button because I think it gets missed. There's a ready button on Arbiter. So if you go to your schedule, you'll see all your games that you have. And then if you hit the dashboard, there's this ready button here on the top left, ready to be assigned. As long as that Baseball Alberta check mark is checked, you should have got the email. If you didn't, let me know, because then there might be something wrong with the way your email is set up in Arbiter. But as long as that check mark is there, you should have got this email. The thing itself isn't posted, but I can post it, and I'll put it down in here. So as you scroll down below your upcoming schedule, you'll see it posted down here, and I'll throw the form in there after this, and that way you can go find it easily there if you haven't seen it already. So keep that in mind, and I'll make sure that that's there for easy visibility if you haven't seen the form already.
Josh says he's going to check his email, so it might have been missed, or maybe there's some technical glitch there. So
just let me know.
That's good. I think that's maybe one of the issues too that we have, is that we're not necessarily always communicating with as many people as we assume we're communicating with. We're trying to mass email. We're going to be probably up around 1,100, 1,200 umpires this year in a perfect world. So when we're trying to communicate mass, we try to use as many different tools as possible, Arbiter being one of them.
Yeah, and that email only goes out to, again, like Brandon mentioned, people in Arbiter, so level 2 and above, and it only went out to about 439 people, which is kind of standard-ish for where we have been level 2. The big bulk of our majority is in the level 1, and again, when we get tournaments out in small places, that's when I kind of reach out, and we try and reward the level 1s that have been working hard in their community leagues all year with those 8 provincials or 11 UAA, 13 UAA. So yeah, if that's you and you want to work provincials, let me know sooner than later, especially if you're a level 1, and we'll make sure that if you're not on Arbiter, we get you on Arbiter and go from there.
Awesome. I think just one point that I wanted to maybe reiterate is how many championships there are for us to assign. If people want to be working post-league play, provincial play, there's probably a spot regardless of age, regardless of capability, that we can find a place for you. And I know that that's a matrix that I did the job way back when, a few years. It's a nightmare. It's taken a few other people until it's been passed on to your plate, Graham, to do it, and you've done a remarkable job the last couple of years. But just maybe explain how they just give us a sense of how many championships, how many umpires we need, and like you said, all the different levels and the locations too. Maybe talk about how that plays into your puzzle piecing together.
Yeah, and it's puzzle's a great way to put it. So let's say that we get 60 championships this year, which would probably be my estimate. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was last year, but it's got to be close to that, if not just over. And on average, probably 6 bodies at each. So quick math says what? That's 300 umpires total you need. So that's a lot of holes to fill. A lot of guys work multiple tournaments, which is great, and that's always appreciated. But 300, there's 300 different potential there, and sometimes it's more, it could be less, depending on how many umpires we use, how many umpires are available. But yeah, it's that your availability is crucial to the success of this as us as an organization. And we want to make sure that because you've given us your availability, we reward you with a tournament that you deserve to go to and that one that you're looking forward to going to. We don't want Provincials to be a drag. It's a big event for all of us at Baseball Alberta, and we want to make sure that's true right down to the umpires. The kids playing are thrilled to be there. They're excited to have a chance to win, and we want you to be excited to be there and have a chance to work it. That's the way it used to be, and we really want to get back to that. So again, availability is crucial. We can't do this without each and every one of you. I promise that if you've given me availability and you're available, we will find you a tournament. There's that many.
Any other questions? Feel free to fire them in the chat, or I'm going to try to allow participants to unmute themselves. So that the ability to unmute yourself, you want to chime in right now and ask Graham a question. In the meantime, I one last question that I had. You briefly touched on it. Jeff touched on the off-field crew chief responsibilities and some of that. Do you want to just maybe go into a little bit more about what a crew chief could look like at a 15U AA tier 5? What would be expected of that person if they were to check off that box on the form and be given that responsibility?
Absolutely. Yeah. So first thing that happens is you'll be assigned on our board where I said base umpire for mine. It'll say plate umpire, and that's how you know, okay, oh, I've been the crew chief. That's good. The next thing is probably a week or two, depending on the host, you'll get an email from myself. In that email, you can see on our board, you'll be able to see everyone else that you're working with, which is great, and contact information if you want to get out and ahead of things. But what you will see from me is an email with a list of everybody in your crew, direct contact information, the name of the host, the contact of the host, where the tournament is, yeah, so then from there, what you have to do is email the host, confirm the schedule. All the schedules are posted on the Baseball Alberta handbook. So they're typically pretty standard, but sometimes because of diamond availability or multiple diamonds or showcase games, they move times around. So making sure that you check with the host to get an updated schedule. Once you have that schedule, your job is to contact all of your umpires, confirm their availability. So if I've got Brandon on my crew, I'm going to reach out to Brandon and say, hey, just want to confirm that you're good all day Friday, all good Saturday, and all day Sunday. And he says, yeah, great, perfect, done. I can slide him wherever I need to. But if he's only available on part of that or not part of that, then I need to be willing to move one way or another. So after I've then created that schedule, it's setting that schedule out to all of the umpires to make sure they're there. If there's a host meeting, it's usually the day of the first tournament or sometimes the night before. So making sure that you ask if there is a host meeting. At those host meetings, typically what happens is it's all the coaches, the host, and then yourself. And it's very simple. Some have been longer, some are very short, kind of just refreshing the rules, making sure everyone's aware of the substitution rules, making sure everyone's aware of the basic ground rules. and more or less making sure everyone's aware of everything that's going on that weekend. Everyone has the same schedule, this, that, and the other. Everyone knows where the concession is, the bathrooms are. Again, sometimes it's very, very simple and it's just been a phone call. Other times it's been a half an hour to 45-minute meeting. So it really depends on the tournament and how involved the host is. And then from there, managing the tournament. So making sure that the guys or the crew that's there working they're taken care of. They know when they're working, they're showing up. Sometimes you may have to wake somebody up or shuffle things around if someone gets hurt. And then Jeff mentioned it briefly, but protests. If there is a protest, there's a protest committee, which the crew chief is a part of. Again, if you're brand new to crew chiefing and it's your first year and you're not sure what a protest is, you've never heard of this protest or how it works, there'll be people there to guide you. And if not, there should be a Baseball Alberta rep that can help with that as well. But yeah, you're more or less the liaison between the umpire crew and the host committee, and that's kind of your job through the whole weekend. 90% of the time it goes off and it's super smooth and you never even have to talk to the host. And the 10% of the time there's protests and other stuff. And the last thing is getting payment, as payment should be from the host most of the time. Any travel is put on a form that you also will get in your crew chief package from myself, and that needs to be submitted back to I think it's myself and Brandon, and then we submit that to the office, and the travel payments will come from the Baseball Alberta office, but all game fees come at the end of the tournament from the host.
Graham, if I may,
Yep.
just a little emphasis on that ground rules part. A crew chief ideally will walk the field, or both, more than one field should they be that. So and write down ground rules. And if you can do that with your crew, that's even better. But it really is the crew chief's responsibility to ensure that proper ground rules are pre-established before the tournament starts and communicated to everybody at a pre-tournament meeting, should there be one.
Yep, and more importantly to your crew, if everyone's not there, making sure. And that's the same thing. Fire off an email the night before. Hey guys, walked around. This is what we're doing. Dugouts are this. There's holes here. No. Done. But yep, great point.
Davin asked a question. I alluded to it earlier about level ones with a lot of experience and not being automatically inputted into Arbiter. How do they get on it? I privately messaged him and I said, basically just email you or I, Graham,
yep.
and we'll hook them up with their proper assigner. What we're looking for when it comes specifically to provincial championships with experienced level ones is umpires that have had the ability to do 11U or 13U house league games and feel comfortable enough to be doing those at the A or AA the AA levels at provincial championships on both base and plate. And I think that and plate piece is an important one. I know you and I've had struggles last year where we had umpires that said they were available, but then when we put them into the category, they said, "Ooh, I don't feel comfortable doing plates at that level." And that's it. That creates an issue on that crew. So we would have placed them better had we known that their comfortability didn't include plates as well. I don't know if you want to touch on that or not, but I just
no. And I think that's part of it. Just because if you're not comfortable doing plates doesn't mean that you're not eligible to do provincials, but it means that we probably need to take a step back and make sure that we're into a spot where that you are comfortable doing that, because as much as some of us may like one way or the other, we don't get the choice. It's you work a pretty well even number through the season as it goes. It's something assigners monitor. I make sure that all of the umpires that I'm assigning have a pretty balanced number of plates and bases throughout the year. And then when it comes to provincials, if there's someone who's been working 15U AAA plates and bases all year long and they've done a good job, and I've gone out and I've seen a couple and they look pretty solid, there's a good chance they're going to get a provincial at that level or just below it.
I think that's another part of the process that maybe isn't so important for our umpires to know, but it kind of is, and how we do it you host a conference call with all the provincial assigners across the province before provincial start to get some feedback from them for their recommendations so that you don't miss umpires that have been, as you alluded to, workhorses, or I think studs was the word you used, that you reach out to the local assigners around our province to get recommendations. So if there's umpires listening to this, like, they should coordinate and communicate with their local assigner to say, hey, when it comes to provincial time, I want in. And even if it's at the lower levels, I still want in. That's important for them to note, because you'll get that'll come back to you.
Yeah, and Brandon mentioned earlier about talking about locations. I think I glazed over it, but we have these all across the province in the smallest towns that I've had to look up on a map to see where they are. And I'm sorry if that's home for you, but I don't know where it is. And so we gotta look it up. And then the first thing I do is reach out to the local assigner in that center. I gotta find out, okay, who's available, who's been working games, who's capable of games at this level. And sometimes they have named for me and sometimes they don't. And so then I go to the next closest center, and it's that process, because at the end of the day, there is a cost to Baseball Alberta. And do we want to provide quality umpires? Absolutely. But it doesn't make sense for me to send guys I'm familiar with from Edmonton all the way down to the corner of the southern tip of the province for provincial, when we've got capable umpires there that just aren't on my radar because I don't want to sign them every day. So yeah, if, like I said before, make your assigner your friend, get to know them, be available, be helpful, and let them know that, hey, provincials, I want in. Because when I reach out, if your name's on that list, then there's a good chance you're going to get that provincial in that area. And that's what sets you up to move up the ranks for the higher level provincials, is once you've been in that provincial program and someone's got eyes on you somewhere and said, hey, this umpire's got a lot of potential, we're going to move things around.
I think what we've kind of just alluded to is the multiple ways that we try to reach out to umpires to get them into this mix to fill the 300 umpire spots, right? So there's going through the local assigners, there's this form, there's them being able to email us, there's multiple prongs in which they can get their interest levels across if provincial baseball is something that they want to be a part of.
Yep, absolutely.
I'll put out one final call for questions before we wrap up for tonight. Are there any more questions from the audience, and any other comments that want to be made? Going once, twice, 3 strikes, and we're out. Graham, any final comments tonight before we finalize and conclude this point of the plate on provincial championships?
Yeah, first off, thanks for attending. Thanks for the questions. And yeah, just keep those dates in your mind, basically from July 19th till the end of August long weekend. And if you're available, please make yourself available, and we'll do the best to get you into a tournament that you enjoy. And any feedback throughout the provincial process is always welcomed. It's not perfect. We're always trying to improve it. I know that everyone would love their assignments sooner, and we're working on improving that. Trust me, I'm optimistic that every year we're going to get better and we're going to get more hosts quicker. And that's really the secret to this. So availability and host locations. The sooner we have all of that, the sooner everyone gets their assignments.
Excellent. Any comments from the audience? Well, on behalf,
I just want to say hi to Joshua. He was on the crew that I worked last year. So hello, Joshua. Glad to see you're back.
Yeah, good to see you, Jeff.
Excellent. All right. Well, on behalf of Jeff Chifley, who's not with us tonight, I'd like to thank everybody for attending the point of the plate. Hope to see you around the ball diamonds, and good luck in umpiring this season.
Bye, guys.